Welcome to the Be Amazing podcast. On this show, we'll give you the fuel you need through motivational pep talks, the fitness tips to be your healthiest self, fortitude to push through the hardships, and focus you need to build the skills needed for the next level, no matter what that looks like to you. I'm your host, Cel Smart. I'm a wife, a mom, community leader, and fitness professional of over 18 years. I'm here to be your biggest cheerleader, advocate, and connector. Let's be amazing together.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Be Amazing podcast. Today I am here with my friend Liz Newkirk. Hello. This is going to be fun because I know you and I've had the opportunity to get to know you, and there's a lot of people that are in our circle that know you.
Yeah.
But from a professional level. Mm-hmm. So now I kind of get to really talk about who is Liz. Yeah. And with that said, you've got to tell us a little bit about who you are.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's awesome to be here. And like you said, we're in so many inner circles with one another. And it's just amazing to watch each other grow and do all of the amazing things. But who is Liz, right? Well, I think I'm pretty simple, right? Even though my resume is stupid long, I am relatively simple. I'm just, the oldest of 8 from Atlanta, Georgia, a girl that loves dogs. It's funny because we were talking about Marvel earlier, and I love Marvel. So, Team Iron Man, Team America. I can't wait for 2026 and 2025 movies. So definitely looking forward to that. But, I love my dog. I went to Redan High School. I've been in the marching band and been dancing all my life. Little known fact, I actually got accepted to Juilliard School of Dance, but didn't go because it was that expensive. And I'm also allergic to cigarettes. All the dancers smoke, right? Because you got to stay fit. And that's not me. So I ended up, dancing at Redan High School with the Blue Thunder marching band. And then I came up here to go to Johnson C. Smith. And I was in the marching band from my freshman year all the way up to my junior year. Because, of course, senior, you have to focus on your grades. And I've been in marketing ever since I was 15. And it's just something that's really stuck with me. Even though there weren't any jobs, trigger warning recession, 2008, 2009. So I was in sales for a long time. And then I think that really helped prep me going into marketing because I understood how those two connect, and oftentimes they overlap. And so that's been very instrumental to my career. And I kind of fumbled into multifamily, right? I think how most of us do. And then I was like, I don't like it. I'm leaving. And then, there are people like, no, you don't. You're coming back. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. So now, I've been with Lovesac and Brownlee for about 5 years now. So time goes by really, really fast. It's already January 2025.
Right.
Essentially.
Right. We're already in 2025.
Happy New Year.
Right. We haven't got to Thanksgiving yet. Well, so this is a really interesting thing about you because you've said a whole lot in this little bit about who you are. One of the things that has connected us was the love for dance, because we both have backgrounds in dance.
Yeah.
And yours is in marching band.
Yeah.
I've seen videos. Amazing. And you
don't Google that.
We'll share that. But you, our connection, even in the community, we share a lot of the same connections because of the honeybees.
Yes.
Brandy. Shout out Brandy. But what I love, the connection that you have is I feel like you're creative. Yeah. So you're creative at heart.
Yes.
And that creativity has really you have a career that is creative. So how does that how do you think that connects?
It's interesting because people don't oftentimes think of dancing as a sport, right? And it's I look at professional cheerleaders and what it is that they go through, the training, the dieting and everything it is that we go through just to get ready for however many seconds, it's not even minutes. Sometimes it's seconds on the field. When I was in marching band, it was 9 minutes and 30 seconds. Right. And it was we only had a few minutes to do what we needed to do. And I believe that being in dance, and more than anything else, it gave me discipline. It gave me the ability to be able to structure and be resilient. And while people think of creativity as like this free flowing, like almost carefree type thing, it's like, well, yeah, it is, but it's also very structured, right? In order for you to get like what I think her name is Paris. She's the choreographer that did Rihanna's Super Bowl, choreography. Look at what it is that it took to go from an idea to actually being executed. And it's the same thing with the honeybees and the top cats and just being a dancer. There's hours and hours and hours and hours of practice and critiquing. And I mean, even just kind of being hard on yourself a little bit before people get to see the final result. And they're like, oh, that's so easy until, they're in your practice and then they're like, holy crap, like, how do you do this every day? And it's the same thing in being a dancer and then coming to work for a law firm and doing marketing. I get an opportunity to be very creative because there's quite a few restrictions in marketing this brand. But I also have to focus on the overall structure and how we're going to get it from point A to point B. And then you see the final result after all of the chaos in the middle, right? So it's awesome. I think it's very connected. You bring up a great point.
Well, and as you're saying this, I'm kind of seeing it because I see it in myself and how I do my job. My job requires a lot of structure.
Yeah.
There's some freedom for creativity. Mm-hmm. And because I come from that background of creative, like I look at things a little different. Mm-hmm. There's timing, there's sequencing, there's like, it's almost like a dance. It is. You're putting together because even I was talking to my friend Terry today who teaches yoga. Yeah. And she's getting ready to teach a workshop on sequencing.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh. Yeah. You just don't think about like, and again, it's that creative mind that comes into play no matter what it is you're doing. Same thing for creating reels, same thing for creating any kind of branding or websites or anything. There's just like, there's a flow, there's an art to it. So that's why I was like, I want to know like how much has your dance played into that? And I can definitely see it.
Oh yeah. It's definitely inside of the everyday practice, especially when we're talking about resiliency, right? Like I always think of this funny that I probably shouldn't tell a story, but I'm going to tell it anyway. And I remember like in high school, we were getting ready for like a pretty big competition, right? And it was like this battle between one school and another. And it had just finished raining. So we got permission to go outside and like do our breakdown routine. And there was this part where it was like, we do like, I think they call it a donkey drop, where it's like you kick your legs out and you like lay on the ground. Well, it was wet. Right. So we mocked it naturally. So we were just like, and the coach was like, what are y'all doing? And we were like, mocking it like it's wet. She's like, so what are you going to do when it's wet when you perform? Are you going to mock it when you perform? Right. And it's like you practice what you perform, how you practice. Right. And so it was like, I've learned the importance of having that structure and having that same thought process and mindset. And if I'm lazy today, then 9 times out of 10, I can miss or skip a process that will make it lazy or ugly or not even fitting for tomorrow, right? So it's like, I have to make sure that I insert in every single step because I want the end result to be good. So, I always say, practice how you want to perform. If you want a nice product, you want a really good brand, you want something really good at the end, you got to put in the work. It doesn't come easy.
It really does. Like it takes time, it takes thought, it takes scheduling, it takes prepping. I can find myself like winging stuff. Like if you're creative, a lot of times you can wing it. But things gotta be like, oh, this is good. But it really now, I think with there being content, now there's like content creation or content creator. Yes. There's a lot more that goes into that. Yes. And there's a lot more time and effort and again, systems in place so that when you are putting yourself out there as a brand or you're representing a brand or you're an influencer or a product, like there is so much more to it.
Yes.
And it's there for a reason. And that's why you'll see some that just are just like, man, it's like, right. It's like, well, it's all the hours behind the scenes we don't see.
Most definitely.
Yeah. It's all that.
Yeah. I mean, people get a chance to like come into our world, especially some of the attorneys. this actually happened not too long ago. We had somebody from processing that wanted an idea. And I was like, oh yeah, like send it on one of our meetings and we'll see how we can execute it. And by the end of the meeting, they were like, I had no idea that this is like all it took to get like a backboard or a rack card or to get something completed and get it done on the website. Like there's so many boxes that has to be checked before you get to the final product. He was like, from now on, like I will not talk junk about marketing team. You know, like you're not just scrolling on social media every day. And I'm like, I wish, you know what I mean? And it's like, even then, you know, that's one of the beauties of being creative is that inspiration is anywhere and everywhere. And you see it all the time. And I also think that's also the importance of learning to rest, right? Because like you're always creating, you're always seeing something. You're like, oh, this is inspiring. This is inspiring. So it's like, sometimes you just have to like watch, like what we were talking about earlier, is just watch something that just shuts your brain off. You know what I mean? It just takes some time for yourself. So being a creative is fun, but it can also be a little exhausting.
It is. For me, and I told you this, I had taken like 3 months where I was completely off social, like no social media, no nothing. And I did it because I wanted to, number one, get back to a place where I felt inspired to put out the content, like this podcast. Like I took a break because I'm getting such a mode of just like rolling through things, like just checking it off the list. And that's not what this is for. Like for me, this podcast is about sharing people's stories and information and things that we can all walk away and have takeaways. And I was like, I'm not in that place right now to interview anyone because I don't know that I'd be present. And being present and creating content, it all goes together. It's so important. So taking those breaks and giving yourself time, letting yourself think, get out in nature, get quiet, let yourself settle, watch something that doesn't mean anything.
Shout out to Chip and Joanna Gaines. That is my favorite. I love Picture Record. I have that on rerun and it's just, Chip just makes me laugh. So, you know, I love it.
So just having those things where it's like, and getting around other people that are creative, getting around other people that are inspiring, that like inspire you to like go and do something or create something. So let's talk about marketing and branding. There's definitely a difference in a lot of that when it comes to, because I've talked with people about PR and marketing are different. And I really wanted to dive into the branding part. Because I think you're able to teach this so well. Like you teach marketing and branding. Like she does these amazing workshops and I've sat in, I know at least 2 or 3 and watched a webinar. So you bring so much to the table and you do it in such a way and make it so easy for us to digest and be able to apply it. So I was like, she's going to be here. So we need to 3 tips. Like she's got 3 tips. 3 tips when it comes to branding yourself. Like if somebody's wanting to brand themselves, give us 3 tips.
So I will say that first, you bring up a really good point before I give the 3 tips, if that's okay. Is that understanding the difference, right? When you're talking about marketing, I always think about marketing in a strategy or kind of like an octopus, right? It's the marketing is like the very center and it has all these little tentacles, advertising, PR, digital, social media, what have you, right? All gorilla, like all of that could be marketing. But when you're talking about branding is very unique, right? And I always think about, I want to say it was the founder of Apple. And he was saying that and I may be misquoting, and so I'm sorry, but it is, your brand is what people say about you when you're no longer in the room. It was either him or Jeff Bezos, one of the two of Amazon, the founder of Amazon. And that stuck with me, right? Obviously not the person that said it, but the saying, right? And I was like, this is really important, right? To remember that people may not remember anything it is that you say, but they remember how you make them feel. And if you think about some of your most favorite brands, right? You think about how it makes you feel the moment if you walk into a brick and mortar store or the engagement that you have on a website or how the salespeople or, you know, people in the fitness room make you feel. You're immediately thinking about that, right? Like I recently went shopping for a car and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go high luxury. I'm going to go high end, right? And I go into all these different dealerships and it's like the difference from BMW, Mercedes, Honda, and Kia is very vast. Sorry, Team Subaru, just not for me. But, you know, Subarus are amazing, disclaimer, right? But just not for me. And so it's like, when you walk into the BMW dealership, they're like, hi, how are you? Like, what's your name? Would you like some water? Do you want a snack? Here's a cold beverage. You know what I mean? Like, they're making sure that you are comfortable. And it was like when I went into Kia, I mean, it was kind of the same thing, but it was very bright, like the atmosphere was very loud. So one of the tips that I can give is like really know the audience that you're looking to attract, right? And really be conscious and aware of how you want them to feel. The moment that they engage with your brand, which can be your people, your website, your social media, that is what they are immediately going to think of. They're not going to always think about price. Because what we've seen, especially in Generation Z, they're willing to pay more if they're going to get, like a quality experience. And that has been something across the board. So I would say the first thing is really knowing your audience and knowing whom it is or what it is that you really want to attract, depending on what it is that you're selling or looking to market. I would say the second thing is that always be analyzing, right? So it's like the way that somebody engages with your brand today may not engage with it the same way tomorrow. And that's because we gotta love digital marketing, right? And how fast it moves. So social media can have something today where it's like, oh yeah, Instagram was like, yeah, now we have Reels. And then 2 months later, they're like, we took it away, right? So it's like you always have to analyze and what your audience is willing to engage with, but you can't do step 2 without step 1, right? And then the third thing is just being really honest about your brand and being open to how people feel. Oftentimes when I work with CEOs, and I've worked with small brands to Fortune 500 companies, right? And one of the things I've noticed with all of them is that CEOs are often in denial, right? Do not be in denial, right? So it's like, I'm sorry, I don't want to tell you your baby is ugly, right? Like, I'm not trying to break any hearts, but it's like, we have to be honest with ourselves. The first step is accepting.
First step is always acceptance.
It's always acceptance, right? And the harsh truth, right? And so I say typically I take about 6 months to really just observe. I don't give any insight. I don't give any feedback. I just observe every single department, because the person or persons that you're looking to attract will engage with one of those departments. And I think people forget that your employees are just as much of your brand and your brand identity as your logo, your tagline, your colors. And sometimes we get so caught up on that, we forget the people. So we have to remember that people are an extension of your brand. And if your people are not coming correct and they're not doing it extensively in terms of really honing in and executing and showcasing your values, then you may want to reiterate what your company values are and what your mission is. So you can't do step 3 without step 1, and you can't do step 1 or step 2 without step 1. And you have to be honest about all 3. You have to be brutally honest. And so, marketers aren't the bad people, right? Like, we're not the bad people. We're just doing our jobs.
Yeah. I think it's funny because we've talked about it with several things I've been involved with, from being on the judges side and on the coaching side for a professional dance team to being in a competition myself and then coming down to the marketing. Mm-hmm. And the marketing are the ones that are making the decisions.
Yep.
And so it's interesting, like how much marketing plays a very key role.
Right. Right.
Not just like you said, creating like the splashy stuff you see on social and website. It's so much bigger and so much broader than that.
Almost definitely. I mean, in terms of the vein of dance, think about the Dallas Cowboys, right? The Dallas Cowboys have their own record. We'll leave that be. I feel sorry for the Dallas Cowboys there, right? But the brand itself is one of the most valuable franchises in the NFL, right? Like the Dallas Cowgirls, right? Like their brand and who they are has been unchanged for so long, and it's like they've been revived. It seems like almost every 5 years, right? It's like now everybody's doing like their dance that they do down the field. It's like viral on TikTok. You know what I mean? It's like they've been doing that for eons, but they find a way to always be relatable, right? And they've been brutally honest with themselves. Maybe not the football team, but at least the brand, right? And so you can recognize, like you look at that star and that's Dallas Cowboys, right? And I think it's really important to really, to your point, just look at it from a different lens and really understanding that it's not about the logo and everything. It's about how people feel. And that's how people show up to those games.
Yeah, it comes down to that. And and even on the part of like the dance coaches that are putting these teams together for the NBA, the NFL, all of that, they have a job to do in putting together a team that's going to work well together.
Right.
And a lot of that comes down to what is the marketing department? They have a huge say in that. And what the look, the feel, like, can they execute? Are we representing everyone?
Right.
Does everyone mesh? Like, there's a whole element in there that I didn't know for the longest time. I auditioned a lot in my 20s and didn't understand what I kept thinking it was because your technique needs to be better, or you need to hit a jump higher, or or I need to look different. And it wasn't that. A lot of it just came down to the fact of what I had learned, and then got on the other side of it and realized no, it's about they're marketing a brand. It's not the team. They're marketing the whole brand. Yeah.
And I think if anybody does branding really exceptionally well, it is the NFL. I haven't seen it. I mean, the fact that they are looping in women and they have flag football and everything else. I mean, oh my gosh, when you don't even, I'm not even from Pittsburgh, right? But I am a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, right? By default, I'm a, Carolina Panthers fan. But, I love the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it's just, I just love the team and the coach and the brand. And it's how did they get me all the way, a Georgia girl by way of North Carolina to love a team that in a state that I've never been to, right? And it's just, I just love the culture of the team. You know what I mean? And they perform really well, obviously.
Well, that's what I love is you're really kind of making it relatable. And you realize that you're I don't even live in that state. Right. I've never been to that state.
Right. But I have a terrible towel.
That's amazing. That really kind of puts it in perspective.
Right.
Because I know, for me, with building Be Amazing and the podcast, that's just been this ongoing process of building and sharing stories has always been part of it from the very get-go.
Right.
Even when we've had the Be Amazing weekends, we've always had opportunities and moments for people to share and celebrate their story. So for me, this was a way to carry it out. This was a way to build community.
Right.
And so it's been really interesting just to kind of be on that side of it. And then you take Ready Fitness, who I work for. I work for Ready Fitness based in Georgia. And people know Ready Fitness,
right?
But in Charlotte, they know me,
right?
And me and Ready are the same,
right? To my point of the people are an extension of the brand,
right?
Yeah.
So it does you really kind of start to see it, and especially if you're in something long enough and you stay with it long enough, it really does it shows up.
It does.
Without even having to say it.
Most definitely. I mean, in the multifamily industry, without a doubt, people know that I work for Lovesac and Brownie. It's me, Lovesac, right? It's automatic. I do not look like my boss at all. At all. I wear the occasional cowboy boot, but we don't look alike. I think that's as close as it comes. But, it's because of the work it is that I've done, and because I make myself an extension of the brand anywhere it is that I go, I have to make sure that, of course, I'm carrying myself a certain kind of way, when people look at me, they see the brand hopefully in a positive light. But that takes a lot of interpersonal training and a lot of development. And it's I didn't just get here overnight. I did a lot of work in the dark before I got to where it is that I am today, for sure.
And that right there is everything. It's all the things that people don't see.
Correct.
As I've seen.
The hidden work.
Yep. That's it.
I interrupt this program for an important announcement. We are having the third annual Celebrating Women in the Queen City event happening Monday, March 24th at Lenny Boy Brewing from 6 to 8:30 p.m. It is a night of networking, inspiration, and celebration. And we are celebrating and highlighting women in multifamily. we have 2 dynamic panels that are going to be in this live Be Amazing podcast. So you don't want to miss it. Get your tickets today. $10. Go to celiasmart.com right now. Get your ticket. Oh yeah, and guys, you're invited too. So make sure you go get your ticket today. $10. celiasmart.com. We'll see you there on the 24th. Now back to the program.
Well, I want to switch gears and talk a little bit more because we're going to dive into a little bit of your personal story.
Okay.
So I think this is really important to share. I think we don't always know what each other has been through or what challenges we faced.
Right.
And it's in these moments when you share it that it makes you more relatable.
Oh, yeah.
So I think, really starting in, you've had a lot of loss in your life.
Oh, yes.
Probably, I want to say in the past year and a half, 2 years.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. The very first one was kind of jarring, right? Like the way that I think about it is that the day before it was like today, right? It's picture perfect. It's sunny outside. You gotta love a Carolina blue sky, right? And it's just like amazing. And then it was like all of a sudden I went to bed and I woke up and it was a monsoon, right? And I'm like, I didn't remember there being any rain in the forecast. You know what I mean? And you're just like, you can't see, like you don't know, you can't even see your hand in front of you. And so that's essentially like how the loss of my sister-in-law happened. It was like the day before my boyfriend and I were like planning our lives and having everything together. And it was beautiful. We were out all day, picture perfect day, had dinner at one of our favorite restaurants. And then we end up going home and around 3-4 o'clock that morning, his sister gives me a phone call and, she just asked if she could speak to her brother. And I'm like, this is weird, right? Like, and I realized, oh yeah, his phone is on sleep mode, right? And so I'm thinking that she's like playing around because they play around with each other and prank each other often. And all of a sudden I just hear her screaming through the phone. And I'm like, what's going on? And so I just let him talk about it. My heart's like in my, like pumping through my chest and I got knots in my stomach trying to figure out like what happened. And I was like, hey, like what's going on? And he was like, my sister just died in a car accident. And it was like, what? You know what I mean? And it was like, she literally, her and her boyfriend were literally coming from dinner and they were turning into their apartment community and a guy going 70 miles an hour hit them while they were turning. And unfortunately, like her daughter heard the crash, but didn't realize and know that like, that's what had happened. You know what I mean? And ever since then, I mean, even till today, right? Like we're still trying to navigate and like funnel through this process. And I think, death is a really, really hard conversation to have. But I think the more prepared you are by like having your estate planning done, having your will written, making sure that you have insurance, life insurance, making sure that you have all your papers in a row and you have them in like a safe deposit box, that makes the grieving process so much more easier because we had to not only figure out like how to bury her, right? But we were also talking to legal counsel because it was, essentially a felony, right? So we were talking to legal counsel and then she is at that time, 10, 11-year-old. So it was like, now she has to go to school, like she has her life has to continue. Like, CMS is not going to stop school because like this is, something tragic that happened to her. So it was like, okay, now we got to go to court and now we got to go adopt and now we got to, enroll her in school. And it's like, oh crap, does she have her shots? You know what I mean? And it's like all of this stuff. And it's like, literally, I just remember from August to September, October, just being a blur. Like I literally like remember little bits and pieces of it, but I don't remember the entire detail. And it was because it was just like going back to that resiliency. It was like, I just got to get through the day. Right. So it's like, what is the goal today? The goal today is to get her in school. Okay, boom, done. The goal today is to make sure that I get to work and I do what needs to do and put out fires. Okay, boom, done. So it was like, I just gave myself like one little goal to focus on without really worrying about extending myself. But I will have to say, if I could do it all over again, I probably wouldn't have stretched myself so thin because I ended up paying for it later. Like grief is very funny in a way where it's like you feel one way in one moment and then it was like all of a sudden this delay And then it was like, you're sitting there in the parking lot. You're like, why am I crying? Because I forgot paper towels. You know what I mean? Like, it's something silly, and you're like, what is happening right now? And it's just, I think sometimes we don't realize that our body will tell us when, and you don't want to get to that point where the body is like, all right, you've had enough. You know what I mean? And it's like, you don't listen, you just keep going. And eventually it'll be like, you didn't hear me the first time. So now I'm going to show you. Right. And 6 months later, I ended up losing a really, really good friend of mine. We talk about multifamily often. And Eddie was just, like a big teddy bear, the brother I never had, like I'm the oldest of 8. So it wasn't like I had anybody that said, here, let me hold your hand and show you the way. You know what I mean? And Eddie did that. The things that I was scared of doing, like starting the GCAA, DE&I committee and ANC and working with, the Triangle Apartment Association, of course, all these acronyms, right? That's in our world. And like we started it together. And it was like from 2019 all the way through 2020, I was scared of speaking in a public space. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
And he would be like, he would literally be like, oh yeah, I can't do it. I have a sales call. I'm like, really, bro? You know what I mean?
And that's like throw you in the fire.
Right. He's like, yeah, I can't give the update to the board. Listen, like, what? Like when we started, we came up with the idea of having like the first ever in our region DE&I scholarship, right? And I was like, I really want people that don't typically have access, that kind of get unintentionally, right, like shut out, to be able to have access, suppliers included. And, he was like, yeah, sure, not a problem. And like, we're writing everything and we're going back and forth and we're having our meeting. And the day we were supposed to pitch it to the Education Foundation, he's like, yeah, I'm busy. I'm like, really? Right? And it's like the Education Foundation, is like the end all be like, you don't really know who they are. They're like in the background. Like, see, they're hidden. They are hidden, right? And it's like, now that I'm on that board, it's like, yeah, it's like, I'm kidding. And then like I have a gallery on about. And it was crazy. And I remember like all these legends are in this room. And it was around a little time after COVID. So I was on a screen and I had like bright fire red engine hair, right? And I'm sitting here with all of these like jaggernauts, right? Trying to pitch this scholarship. And one person says, yeah, I think the lady with the pink hair has a point. I think like this is, and I'm like, it's right. But, and I was like, but all I heard was, yes, all in favor, motion approved. And it was like, thank you so much. And then it was like, you hanging up and I was like, oh my God. Right? So it was like, I called Eddie and I was like, if you ever do this to me again, he's like, but it got approved, right? And I was like, yeah, it's like, see, like you're always freaking out and like you can totally handle it. So it was like, when I finally got to Supplier Council President, one, I never expected to make history. That was never in the thing for me. Oftentimes in our industry, you get voluntold to do things. Mm-hmm. And so he was like, no, like you're doing it. I'm like, no, I'm not. And like you and a few other people like, yeah, no, you're doing it. Right. And it was like, I didn't even have a chance to like rescind my name off the ballot. It was just already there. And so I did my pitch. And the first time, and Beyonce talks about this with like how many Grammys she lost versus how many she won. Mm-hmm. And it was like the first time I didn't get it, right? I lost to a very good friend of mine, Bill Clements. Shout out to Bill, my work husband. And then it was like, the second time around, he really talked me into it. And then I get there and we were standing in the parking lot. I will never forget this. We were standing in the parking lot and I was like, Eddie, it's not going to happen. He's like, well, they got one or two choices. They can choose the path that they've always taken, or they can decide to choose the path with you and take a gamble. But I think it's a pretty good gamble. And as soon as he said that, Cel, my phone rang. And Bill was like, where are you? Did you leave the parking lot? And Betsy's calling me, where are you? Did you leave the parking lot? I'm like, no. I'm like, oh crap. I'm like, what did I leave? Right? Like squirrel moment. Like I was just so anxious about everything. And so I walk back up and it's just like, the soft golf clap, you know, and you walk in. And I'm like, what happened? And they're like, did you won? I was like, oh snap, like for real? Like I really have to do this now? And they were like, not only did you win, but like, so with the Suppliers Council, you're on it for 3 years, right? You know, as former, you know, Suppliers Council president. And it's like, you're on there for 3 years, secretary VP, then you become president. And it allows for you to be able to look and navigate and try to understand the journey of however many supplier, you know, vendor partners we have. And so I found out that I was the first woman of color to be ever Suppliers Council president in like almost over 45 years. Like they had never had that before. And I was like, I did what? You know what I mean? And I just remember like on my way home, like just calling Eddie and just being like, dude, like, did you know? And he was like, no, I didn't know. Like, that's amazing. You know, so it was like, we had this, you know, sister, brother, you know, like relationship where it was like very rare do you find people like Eddie who were really tall, like big, burly of a teddy bear guy, and, you know, an amazing family. Shout out to Brandy Robinson and his amazing, talented girls who play volleyball and football. And it was like, it's not often you meet people that you can really confide in. And one day I saw him, it was a Thursday. I had seen him almost every other week before then because it was all of these events. And I remember like at our board meeting, because I finally became a member of the board, he sat next to me because I got on him about not attending the board meetings in person. I was like, now you asked me to do this, right? Like you're going to be here, right? And so when he walked in, he was like, what's up? I was like, please don't sit next to me. I'm trying to adult, right? Like I'm at the big kids table. Like, you know, I'm trying to be a professional. You need to be on the other side. And it's like, there's this clip, and I don't mean to get political, but it's a very funny clip. It's of Kamala Harris and another politician, and it's the House Speaker. And he's like trying to go up to the mic and like they're acting like children in the background. That was me and Eddie, right? And I'm like, ooh, crap, you know. Put our quiet fingers up or whatever. And so it was interesting because like we were ka and, you know, kiki and, you know, like giggling like kids or whatever. And we almost got separated like we were in school. And I saw him and I remember saying to him, I was like, all right, I was like, tell Brandy and the kids, I said, bye. And, you know, I'll see you at the golf tournament. And he was like, yep. And he was like, I'll see you. And I'll bring over some of my barbecue because he was a phenomenal light barbecuer, like just amazing. And that was the last time I saw him. Mm-hmm. I didn't see him anymore after that. And it was crazy because it was like, I remember getting the phone call that morning and just wailing in the phone. And it was just such a jarring response for me. And it honestly stayed with me throughout the duration of my presidency. Mm-hmm. And it was like almost everything it is that I did, or every time I went in that boardroom, you know, there was something that happened where it was like, I thought of him. The golf tournament was really hard because, you know, he was supposed to be there. I'd watch him come up to the hole. You know, we talk junk, you know, because we would sponsor a hole. My company would sponsor a hole. And we talk junk and, you know, talk crazy about people or whatever, have our own little moment, you know, and then he'd be off. And it was like, I kept waiting to see him on the golf cart. And it was weird. And it was just like, you know, I had to learn how to separate the personal from the professional. The personal really did not want me to be there, but the professional and Suppliers Council president required for me to do so. I needed to be there because I'm representing the council. And so that was a part of my presidency that I never really expected to learn how to navigate in real time, right? And so losing my sister-in-law, adopting her kid, navigating that grief, and then losing my friend 6 months later, it was a lot. But, you know, it taught me so much more selfishly, as it may sound, about me and just what my bandwidth is and what I can do and what it is that I can overcome and how resilient I really am. You don't know how strong you are until you don't have a choice, right? And it's like I had no other choice but to be like, I can't let my crown fall. You know what I mean? Like neither one of them would want this, but also understanding the importance of self-care and when to say when, right? And I think I learned that. I probably should have learned that a lot sooner, but it's definitely something I took with me.
Yeah, I think that was the reason why I wanted you to really share about that is because you have not dropped anything. Like I've watched you, and I mean,
Eddie's been talked about so much over the past year. And then I know what you've gone through with the adoption process and where you are now. So it was just like watching you go through the day. Now you guys have to have this big move, and it's like all these things, and you've not once like wavered or have allowed that to stop you. You've managed to keep going. So for somebody else that might be in that state right now, or might be in a place of where they are grieving a loss, and it could be a loss of a person, it could be a loss of an animal, it could be a loss of a job, it could be a lot. Grief is different. I mean, we all experience it. We're all human. It's just our human experience. But what would you say to someone that might be in that place right now that's really struggling?
I have a tattoo that I will not name the place, but I have a tattoo that says, I struggled when I emerge. And I think that so often we are expected to be perfect all the time, right? Especially as women, we're very, very hard on ourselves. And it's like, I had to understand that struggle is also a part of the human experience. To love is to lose, right? And to experience that grief. And sometimes while it's hard, it can also be a beautiful thing, because that meant that you loved something once, and you can continue to love it even when it's not physically here. And so I say, remember that tomorrow's another day, right? Like if all you did today was brush your teeth and wash your face, that's good enough. That's good enough. If you can do one little thing that makes you feel safe. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that feeling safe, that feeling secure. That's something that you should hold on to as much as you possibly can. But I will say, I have to be really honest with all of that, is that I wouldn't have been able to get through that if it wasn't for my friends, right? Like, my family's in Atlanta, but they don't necessarily understand our world and how it works. It's so complex. It's massive, right? Multi-billion-dollar industry, but it's also small, right? And if it wasn't for people like yourself and some of my other friends that I can call and just be like, I'm struggling today, right? Like I don't know like how I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, I just need a moment to vent. I just need a moment just to like put the pieces of the puzzle together. Being able to have those safe spaces is what allowed for me to get to point A to point B and be able to do the things it is that I needed to do and show up in the ways that I needed to show up. So I would say, remember that you may be struggling, but eventually you will emerge. It's temporary. I promise you. It may not feel like it, but I thought I was never going to get through that. And I'm still not through it, but I'm figuring out what my new life, this new leaf, this new chapter looks like. And luckily for me, I have a very solid group of people around me and a strong faith to really help me through it.
Both of these things are key. I think your faith and your community, I think that's everything. And like you said, I think it's having that small group of people that you can lean into and trust and building that. So I really thank you for sharing that. And you said a very key thing at the end. You talked about self-care.
Oh, yes.
So I was like, what do you do? Like, what is your go-to for self-care? What do you do right now? What's in your self-care? Like, what does that look like?
I will literally turn on Beyonce Homecoming on my TV as loud as I can possibly legally allow it. And I have a drink in hand and I have a concert in my living room. I am so serious. Like, it is the most free thing, like feeling like I am Beyonce and Giselle Knowles Carter, like in that moment. And I'm just singing like all the songs and doing all the choreography at the top of my lungs. And it's like, I'm not perfect. I'm not in tune. I'm not even on key. And I may have jacked, something up, right? But it's like, it is the most freeing thing on the planet of just like being able to just bask myself in the queen herself of music, right? And it's just, I'm very serious. Like, that is something I love doing. If I'm having a stressful day, it's like, all right, you already know what it is, right? Like, it doesn't matter if it's in the car. I'm sure somebody has a reel of me somewhere going, you know what I mean? like, I'm sure somebody has me doing full-fledged choreography in the vehicle. You know, like when I make my trips, you know, with work, turn your head, cover your ears, Chris. But like when I'm driving and it's like I'm going to a work event, like I am like blasting Beyonce and I'm just like doing all the choreography. And then it's like, oh yeah, work. Okay. You know, like it really empowers me and gives me everything it is that I need. And it's like my blood pressure goes down. Mm-hmm. The world is okay. And I can get to the very next thing.
I love that. My husband will pop up the stairs every once in a while and I might be in there like dancing. I'll just have music on and I might be just breaking it down for a few minutes. And he's like, where are you going? I'm like, have a moment. Like this is like, I'm going to dance now.
You know what I'm saying?
Because I'm going to myself with my music blaring.
My best friend, she does it. Like she has this wicked sound system in her house and she has this huge farm. And her husband like works down like with the animals and stuff like that. And he can hear her, you know, like just dancing, you know, just blaring and listening to music. And it's like, it's so freeing. It's so freeing to be able to just listen to your favorite tunes, your favorite jams, and just block out the world. You know, I love music. It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, it can be from rock, like I love Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin, 2 original records I have, Doobie Brothers, like Led Zeppelin, one of my personal favorites. You know, and it's like I have all of those records and it's like I'll put the vinyls on and listen to them, or I'm doing Michael Jackson or, you know, like whatever. And it's like there's something just so awesome that, you know, you can bask yourself in this musical experience and just become free. You know, I would not recommend it when you're trying to clean because your cleaning process is like 5 times longer than what it should be, right? And it's like, why did it take me forever? Like, why did it take me 3 hours to mop the floor? It's like, yeah, because you were moonwalking.
Okay, so we're talking about how music moves us.
Yeah.
What about inspiration? Do you lean? Is there like a quote? Is there a certain song? Like, is there something that you kind of lean into and you just really need to be inspired?
Yeah, I actually look towards my friends, my mom and my grandmother. Right? It's like they inspire me all the time, right? Like you and your resiliency and everything it is that you've done to like build your brand and who you are. I've always admired you from afar. I mean, like since 2015, 2016. And, you know, like I remember like you're like the smallest person in this room, right? At our suppliers council president or our suppliers council meeting. And you get up on the podium and you're like, hi, I'm Cel. And I'm like, this is awesome. You know what I mean? Like she's yay big and she's just walking in here like she owns the place, you know? And it was like, because you did. And it was just like snaps for you, you know? And it's like, that really inspires me. And like watching you in your social media content, it inspires me. And I think I told you this. It's like, there were some times it was like, man, bro, like I really do not want to walk on this treadmill today. Like, I really don't. And it was like, and you're like, look at these burpees. And I'm like, all right, if she can do burpees, I can do 30 minutes. You know what I mean? Put on Beyonce and let's handle it, right? You know what I mean? And so I truly do find inspiration from my friends, my grandmother. She's been through so much. She's been a teacher for 14 years. And she's just raised beautiful, amazing, you know, children, of course, to include my mom. And my mom is probably one of the most empathetic people you will ever meet, right? Like if I just need somebody to be like, Mom, just tell her it's okay. You know, it's like she does that for me. And my grandmother's like, all right, you cried. Like, okay, moving on. Like, let's get it done, right? You know, and so to have that balance and to have those friends is really important. But that saying that I have, you know, I struggle, but I emerge is very important to me. And I remember that, like my pain, my sorrow, even my joy, everything is temporary, right? And it's like, live for today and just pray for a better tomorrow, you know, even if today was a good one, you know, like just keep just keep moving to the best of your ability. And every day's a gift. Be a rainbow in someone's cloud is my answer.
Oh, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I love the saying that you talked about, the struggle.
Oh, yeah.
I just think that these are things that we all need to be reminded of. And you have like, just in this whole conversation, we've kind of gone from like all these different elements, professional, career, personal, loss, gain, like all those things. And I just really appreciate you sitting down and having the conversation and being able to talk about all this. And before we wrap things up, one last thing I always ask is like, is there anything that we haven't talked about? Is there anything else on your heart that you just want to leave, like as like one last thing?
I would just say be kind to everyone, for everyone's battling their own struggle. Like we're in a very divided time right now. And it really breaks the heart to see. I would just love for us to just find a way to come to center and just really hear each other's stories and points, even if they're outrageous, right? Like just find a place in your heart to just make space for someone that you haven't made space for before. And just realize that everybody's fighting their own battle. It costs us nothing to be kind. It costs you nothing to be kind. And I think the more that we can really embody that as a people, as a culture, and as a country, the better we will become in being really understanding and empathetic to our fellow man, because we never know what anybody's going through. So if I would say didn't touch on anything, I really want people to remember and understand that.
Yeah, sure. I agree. I mean, kindness goes a long way.
Yes, it does.
Listening goes a long way. And being present.
Yes.
That's all of that. So when you're having a conversation with someone, being present like that and being kind to listen.
Right.
And right there.
Right.
So right there with you. Okay. So where can everybody find you?
So they can find me definitely on LinkedIn. Just, Liz Newkirk. It is Elizabeth, but I go by Liz just to make it easy. And you can find me on there. And I think that's the best place to get me, because that's where my portfolio is, and it links to my Instagram. So that way you can see my life, my crazy life through my lens, and definitely would love to connect with you and just show you this crazy journey it is that I'm on. And it was so awesome to tap with you and chat with you. I really enjoyed myself. It was
this was great. This was fun. So Liz, thank you so much for being here. Y'all stay tuned for another episode coming up, and make sure you go visit Liz's website and follow her on Instagram today.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Be Amazing podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please send it to someone who inspires you so they can feel amazing too. If you want to help us reach new listeners, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Don't forget, you can find the video versions of our episodes on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram at the Be Amazing Podcast, or DM me at Cel Smart. I'll see you in the next episode.